I wanted to make a transition from last week, and also a little reminder, I didn't get all the summaries from everyone. So there's only half of the students that posted their summary after the class, and I'm not sure where are the other half. I have not received all the summaries, so make sure to email me your summary. And today there's going to be another presentation on two different authors and researchers and influential people. So you will have the opportunity again to do a summary. So I'm not sure why I didn't get it from the people last week. Yes, Alexa.
I know that I submitted mine on the Canvas page. Would you prefer that it's emailed to you?
Well, it was on the Canvas page, but only half of the students submitted it.
Oh, okay.
So I got half on the Canvas, and the other people never received it, even via email or anything. So I'm not sure what they did, if they kept it and said, oh, I'll submit it later, and they forgot. So I'm just telling you, submit it now, because it's better to do it now than me asking you in 4 weeks, and then we're trying to track down all the different things. So that would be the easiest thing to do. And in fact, I've never had this problem before. Normally people submit it very quick, so I never had to track it down. But it's in your cohort, what's very interesting is people are very good at submitting. That's been the trend from the beginning. The groups were done very quick. Most of the draft for Nishwaki, I got them yesterday. It's like, wow. Normally I get them all like 2 minutes before the class starts, and so I had them 24 hours before. I mean, a few hours before. That's impressive. 24 hours before. It's like, wow, that's beyond organized. It's outstanding. So there's a lot of very neat things that I've seen in this class. I've met with a number of people. I've had people submitting those drafts even last week for me to start reviewing them. So I'm really pleased. This is a very good attitude to say, hey, let's do it before and let's submit things before and all that. So I just want to say thank you, because I think we can do a better job if we are working ahead of schedule. That's awesome. We will. And as you can see, there's different things to make you think different ways. Today, there will be another opportunity to think outside of the box, but the assignment that you're working on for this Saturday and that you will present just to me, not to the class this time, is an assignment that is going to polish you to think in terms of research and opportunities. I haven't looked at your draft yet. I'm going to do that tomorrow and on Friday, and then that way I can give you some feedback. So when we meet, I can give you a few words on them on Saturday. But usually what happens, I don't want to say that everybody's the same, but usually what happens is people do struggle with the opportunities when it comes to be talking about the one of the client. So that's why the exercise of presenting some other group finding an opportunities makes it easier, because you can see what someone else did. And then you see it in the context of the music industry, which is obviously what's the most interesting for you. But I think for you to be thinking out of the box and be creative in the music industry, you need to think about the business industry overall. That way you're not sort of closing doors, and you can see what can be done in any industry. And the format is always the same. The way of thinking is always the same. So you're going to have to, obviously, trying to work on the Matadors farms or the Valley Hive. When you have good presentation already produced, you just have to understand what they're talking about and then try to present them using the jargon and all of this. So there's a jargon that needs to be used in the marketing world, in the business world. And I see, for just an example, some of you talk about the audience. When we talk about the consumers and the clients, we don't talk about the audience, we talk about the target. So that's the little details that I'll be working on. That way you prepare yourself to speak from a marketing standpoint, which I think is very important to understand, because you can speak about the audience, but when you speak about the audience is within the framework of advertising. So the advertiser, the people that work in public relations, So maybe that's why you are more used to that term audience, because public relation is a marketing field. It's a subcategory of marketing, which is more common within the music industry. And maybe that's why a lot of you call it audience. But in that field, you can call it audience, and it's the typical world, but the bigger world, which is the business world, called it the target. So there's a few words, and I'm not, I think, pedantic, arrogant about it. I do understand the various worlds because I work in the industry, so I see what people are saying. But I just want to tell you, that way you know, and that way when you hear people using different terms, you know that it's their own bias, or maybe they don't know what they're doing. So I want to start this class before maybe asking you a question, such as, do you have any questions or anything you want to ask me, a confusion in terms of what you're doing or anything like this before I move on? What is an epistemologist's favorite response to a question would be? Is it yes? Is it no? Is it depends? And essentially, yes, it is, it depends. Why would it be it depends?
Well, my group did this topic last week, and
Cool.
one thing that I learned about this theory was that it's all about like using your own beliefs and your own truth and what you've learned, and also recognizing that other people have different truths and different beliefs. So that's why I feel like it depends, because you recognize there's several sides to every story.
Yes, exactly. There's several sides to a story. There's different perspectives. There's also a notion of the time when you try to answer the question, because these people are very much into the progress, which is that, you know, I can only answer this question with what I know today and what is known today. But it's very likely that this answer may vary with the time. And in fact, they embrace people that don't agree, that disagree. They don't embrace people that disagree because they are they like to contradict and argue. Is they like that because they want to hear a different perspective for the sake of advancement. It's like, if someone has disagree, what are their concepts? What is their theory? What are the data that help make them believe that they may be right? So that's also very refreshing. It's someone that says, you know what? If someone disagrees with me, it's my opportunity to learn something. So let's hear their argument for the disagreement, and maybe I can learn something and become better. The epistemologists are the people that wake up every morning and say, you know what, can I be the best of what I can be today? And can I be better than yesterday? And can I learn something? I'm not interested in people that agree with me. I'm not seeking agreement and universal similarity. I'm looking at differences. And it's true, the differences. You know, you oftentimes hear America is great because it has diversity and all this. And sometimes you sort of feel that you're trained to say, yes, this is good, but you don't really know why. Well, epistemology explains you why. It's because different people have different point of view, and therefore you can hear their point of view. And it doesn't mean that you are, because you're not the same and you listening to a different point of view, you can't agree with these people because their point of view may have a better argument that supports it. But that argument changes with time. And that's also why there is it depends. It depends based on what I know. And so I want to move on to this concept of science washing. So science washing, you know, it's typically what we are subjected, all of us, all the time, which is there's one truth, and this one truth is explained by Wikipedia. And essentially, when you have this kind of situation, people that think that Wikipedia is all the truth, only the truth, and there's nothing more, they have become dangerous people. And the people that say, oh, I don't believe in Wikipedia, it's all crap, they're also very dangerous people. So the people that makes more sense, again, is what you said, there's multiple stories, and it is possible because Wikipedia is free, that essentially you are not a client, but you're a product, because they are working on you to give you some information and to make you believe in certain directions. I actually know some people that are paid. It's part of marketing. They pay to actually put anything you want inside Wikipedia. They have many different names, many different pseudonyms and so forth. And they work for a fee to actually include things in Wikipedia. And they are used, I know there's people that mostly work with politicians. So when I say politician, I don't say the president of a country specifically, but there's a lot of politicians, people that try to be mayors, people that try to be local voted people. And so they can create your profile and add you and connect you in various pages of Wikipedia. So that way they can change sort of your reputation and in a better way, you know. And sometimes it's just the truth. It's just or at least it looks like the truth. And so it's a job. And now it has become a job for some people to be special consultants, Wikipedia consultants, and all of these different things, reputation consultant and all that. So you can talk about science washing because there's the issue with health. And obviously, I don't need to remind you about the pandemic. And probably we'll know more about the pandemic in 10 years than we know today, because there will be a perspective on really all that things that happened. But there's also the animal rights, which is a subject which has a lot of science behind, which is, you know, which species should have left earlier, which one should stay, which one should protect. There's the issue with climate. You know, I'm not trying to be politically correct or incorrect here, but there's people that say climate should be like this and should not be like that, and things change, and the concept of biodiversity as well is another one. So just as an example, meat is good for you. So there's some people that tell you need to eat meat, and meat is healthy and it's good for you, and every human being should be eating meat. And there are other people that tells you, oh no, meat is bad, and here how you can have 6 abs without meat versus 6 abs with protein, which protein, and all this. And the more you study this, the more you realize that it's very confusing and there's pros and cons for all that. Then what's more interesting, and that takes a long time, is you can look at a marketing organization, which is a lobby, and it's the meat lobby. And what they do is they try to create meat certification, you know, meat from Alaska, meat from America, meat from Idaho, and they create all of this to protect meat and for people to feel that this is the right thing. In Europe, they have so many organizations that work to protect those industry, and one of them is Let's Talk About EU Pork, because they're trying to tell you that pork is good, and the pork produced in Europe is the best one, and you should eat more pork and all that. And then you have some other association that tells you, no, there's a big problem with pork, because, for example, there's a region in France called Brittany where there's more pork than people. So the population of in Brittany, which is like close to Normandy, it's in the northeast of northwest of France, has a larger pork population than people population. And so then you say, so what's the problem? They have a lot to eat, good for them. Well, the problem is the pork, they pee. And when they pee, that goes into the ground, and then it goes. So is this true? Is this a belief that people get sick because of the quantity of ammonia and all kind of toxics that comes from the water that people drink? Some people say, yes, it's true. Some people say there's conspiracy. So things are very complicated, and there's science washing because there's interests. So, for example, in Brittany, most of the pork in France is produced in Brittany, and some of the people that produce pork happen to be billionaires. And there are sometimes billionaires that you don't see in the list of billionaires because they want to be left alone. But then you start sort of realizing that they could be very billionaires because of the lifestyle that they have and all that. And then they come in the light of the media, but eventually they buy the media. And so it's an interesting world we live in. And so obviously there's a lot of science washing. I mean, if you may have remembered that a few years ago, they were telling people that it was very bad smoking, and therefore that's what they're recommending vapes. And so vapes became very popular because they made it popular, and at the same time, the flavors that made it even more popular, all of those sort of young people type of flavors. And now you have an organization that's called novapes.org, which is fighting against the consumption of vapes. So the world we live in is a constant world where there's a pendulum, and it constantly tries to balance itself. Now, maybe you've not heard about science washing, but when you think about it, there's a lot of it, and you can see that. The one that you may have heard is called greenwashing, which is a much more common phenomenon, which is also very connected to science washing because there's a lot of this. So I'm thinking about the green financial investments. So I'm reading and watching a lot of documentaries on that because I find it fascinating. And so I won't go into it because otherwise this is going to look like a political science class. But the issue is there's a thing called ESG. And so when people invest, a lot of time they try to look at the ESG. I mean, do they do that, or they're not doing that? Is there some kind of hidden power that makes people look at the ESG, which is environmental, social, and corporate governance? Is essentially, are they careful in the impact that the company is creating from the society or from the environment and from the climate and all this. And so a lot of people said that they are investing in ESG, but the reality is when you actually look at all the research on people investing on the ESG, the reality is people invest in profit. So if green investments are profitable, people invest in it. If green investments are not profitable, they are not investing in it. So it's a little bit like NFTs. If they are profitable, people are buying them because they look like they're profitable. Once people turn around and they're not interested in it, then it's not that good. But there is the concept of green bonds, there's the concept of windmills, nuclear power. And then the last one, which I find very interesting, which is going to be either greenwashing or not, either science washing or not. It's those machines, and it mostly comes from Switzerland, that are machines that are like huge vacuums. They are like the size of a hospital, and they are absorbing the air, exclusively cleaning the air of carbon and removing the carbon in the air. And all the big investors, the big banks are going crazy right now and buying shares of this company, in particular the one called Climeworks, which is the leading company in terms of vacuum cleaning the air of carbon. There's a lot of controversy with this because there's a lot of people that says that carbon is good, and there's people that are actually scientists that look like they have no conflict of interest and saying that it makes no sense because carbon is how you get the planet to grow, because the plants, they need carbon, and the more carbon, the more plants, and all of this. So it's a balance. At the end of the day, I'm not a biologist or whatever, so I don't know. But what I find interesting is if you, depending on where you look at, you get one story or another. There's a movie which just came out. It's called Don't Look Up, with Leonardo DiCaprio, and who is super famous, Kate Blanchett, Meryl Streep. So quite a lot of famous people in this movie. And it's looking at a big disaster that's going to happen. It's supposed to be the movie that's going to win all the prizes coming this spring, because it's looking at some kind of collision of stars and meteorites and all that are going to come and crash Earth. And therefore, there's some science behind that. But at the same time, there's science washing happening at the same time. And then Leonardo DiCaprio is trying to get the government to stop this disaster to happen, and to convince the government to stop this. But the government doesn't really want to stop it. At the same time, some people want to stop it. So it's again very much using this subject. And so there's lots of movies. It's very popular in the world of entertainment to talk about this subject. It's very marketable. Another one, it's a little bit like, people, what do you think of nuclear? So a lot of people say, oh, I don't like nuclear. And you ask them why, as an epistemologist. And as an epistemologist, they will tell you it's because my belief is it takes 1,000 years to remove a nuclear power plant. So who is going to be using it just for 80 years? It's very selfish, because the other people are going to have to suffer the consequences of another 900 years in order to remove them. And it's not very good for these people. And then, so they are against it. And then another person will tell you, no, I'm for nuclear power because that's the only way that we can sustain all of these electric cars. And since I just bought an electric car, I don't want to hear about the price of electricity going up. So I need my nuclear plant so that way we can keep the electricity down. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. I get an electric car so that way I can stay away from the gas prices going up, but then they're going up because we haven't had any nuclear power plant being built. So everybody has a conflict of interest. Everybody has a minimal perception and view of all of the information. Nobody has 100%. And therefore that creates a situation where people are sort of misinformed, and therefore they're making decisions within this framework. I wanted to tell you all of this because yes, I can talk about the sweet talk about what is marketing, but I think it's very important to be a human being and seeing that there's two sides to the story. And therefore, if you're a marketing person, you have an impact. And therefore, you have to make the best judgment in taking the side that you think is the fair side. But at the same time, you're working in business, so you have to think about the profit, you have to think about the long term, you have to study the market, do some research, and do your job at finding opportunities. So by doing this in the world that we live in right now, you cannot be blind to these matters of science washing and greenwashing. So I just wanted to bring it up. All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as self-evident and common knowledge. So this was Arthur Schopenhauer, which is one of the authors that will be presented by the students at some stage. A very smart intellectual that was very famous in the business world, very famous for everything that has to do with leadership, entrepreneurship, economics, and so forth. A brilliant person. And so he was very much, I suppose, an epistemologist, because he believed, again, that everything depends. It's a perspective. So today, I have a lot that I want to cover, because I want to talk about the environment. Again, because the environment is directly connected to the opportunities, but at the same time, I want to bring back the concept of research. I barely talked about it last week, and then strategy and consumer behavior. That's the thing. So for the first hour and 15 minutes, we're going to look at the subjects, and we'll have a break. Then we go into Schopenhauer and Milgram, and then we will have another short lecture, and then we'll finish with the Forbidden Band. The Forbidden Band is very exciting clients that will be presented by your fellow students today, because it's very tricky, and it's a different way of thinking in order to solve this problem. It will be different. So what I want to inspire in you is that there's many ways to solve a problem, and the best way are not always the most obvious, but they are not always the most complicated. So you have to have you have to use common sense, but at the same time, good data. And so that's something I think I've wrote you is be careful. Most of the information do not come from databases. So most of the information comes from talking to people. And so I want to reinforce this. And I had an excellent meeting just before the weekend with a team member. And this was brilliant, because this individual had a lot of questions, and eventually I think understood a lot of the challenge. So is repeat business because of satisfaction or because of good marketing?
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction.
So the best answer, yeah, would be satisfaction. Because the people normally, you would think, are maximize their benefit. And so if they were satisfied, they come back. But you can't underestimate the impact of doing good marketing as well. They both have an impact. Good marketing generates satisfaction, satisfaction generates more good marketing result, but they both leave, satisfaction lives inside good marketing, but good marketing is essentially summarized by satisfaction. So good marketing is still a skill that goes broader than just satisfaction. Good marketing is also very much understanding the consumers. It's also understanding your competitors. So satisfaction is very related to the consumers, but it's not related to what your competitors do. Good marketing may be to look at what your competitors are doing and learning from the good things they do and the bad things that they do. That has nothing to do with satisfaction. So satisfaction is a narrower concept than good marketing, but it is still the most important concept within good marketing. Okay, so good marketing will generate satisfaction, and that's probably 40% of what's inside good marketing, but 40% doesn't explain 100. So good marketing is also based on having plans, of being organized. So planning is this idea that you have to have an understanding of where you are and where you want to be. And so organizing yourself in terms of we have some objectives, we're going to have some strategies, and we're going to have some tactics is very important. So what's important here, and that's my repetition, constant repetition, is strategies is bigger than tactics. tactics are small details. So when you look for opportunities, look for strategic opportunities. Look for both. The tactical opportunities are the ones that come more naturally. However, you need to think about the bigger picture. So just going into this, so therefore what you're doing is you're constantly looking at the market and the constraints in the market, and you're seeing what's in the markets that's changing that you can take advantage of. So the environment is made of the factors that directly affect the company, and these are called the micro-environmental factors, versus the ones that indirectly affect the company are called the macro. So the pink circle is more important, and the yellow circle around the pink is still very important. They have just different, it's just the I would say the proximity of the impact of these factors is more diffused if they are in the yellow, in the macro, because they're affecting everyone else. Your customers affect you mostly, but the United States popular and cultural trend affects all the businesses. So there's something broader about the macro environment. So when you look for opportunities, you look at all the changes within all of these. So in the music industry, obviously the most important is the customers, but that's sort of in industries. The competitors would be very important. I would imagine that the intermediaries are very important in most of the cases, not all, but in the sense that in the music industry, there's many people playing a role, and all of these different roles, you can't not take them into consideration. So you have the people that do the promotion, you have the publishing, you have all the distribution, you have all of these different people involved, and the recording and all of this, and the lawyers, and all of the different intermediaries play an important role, and you have to review all of these and maybe the changes that occurs. So the big change that has happened that would impact this are the technology. So obviously for the past 20 years, it's been sort of worse and worse and worse for the music industry, how much technology has impacted it. And therefore it has taken a lot of time for the music industry to adapt to those technological changes because they were very deep and abrupt. So then the political changes, there's some level of political changes, but I don't know that there's anything that changed recently that would impact. Cultural changes are the one that are sort of the most unknown, I think, because the pandemic is something that for most industry has created a cataclysm, a change, a brisk change. So what is the change in the music industry that the pandemic has created? It's hard to tell because everyone is making assumptions on what they are. So I think there you would want to look for some data, but it may be so recent that the data is not really valuable. So asking the consumers, maybe you will sense some of the changes through the discussion with the consumers and then try to see if there's existing databases that validates that. So demographics, yeah, they could be, but so that one obviously will require doing some database. Economics also will be the database, and natural, I don't think natural has too much impact. So what happens is, because of the sake of time, you don't want to think that there's only one or two that are important. You know, there's more than one or two, but you want to think about the one that are the most important. So that way, they are the one that you give the most weight. And so just to recap, the most important are customers, competitors, intermediaries, and then technological, cultural, and economic. for sure. And so these are like the zone where you want to be mining, but again, not just databases. You want to engage in discussions with potential customers, with potential targets. So the potential targets is something that I would be speaking, not in the next class, but in the following class, when we will talk about the target and the concept of segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So where do you want to put this information that you gather? You want to put them into the SWOT. So the SWOT is what you worked for today. You gave me a draft. So I suppose that you are now a little bit more comfortable about this concept. What is not to be missed, and based on my experience, they still miss people confusion, is what's internal and what's external. And so that's the only thing that you want to be careful. What's internal is SW, which you have control, and what's external is OT. So let's look at some examples. It's always important to think in terms of opportunities and IDs. Let me see. I should have all this open. Okay. So I'm going to open a slide, which I call the OIST. And I want to show you this OIST slide because it's a slide that usually helps students think outside. So it's not something that you can Google and just came up with it. But the OIST is just a PowerPoint slide where it's opportunity, ID, strategy, and tactics. OIST. And why do I do this OIST? Because people natural inclination is to do. What is people's natural inclination? Anyone has any idea of what is normally, so you have 4 words. What is the most common order of those words normally?
Idea?
Yeah, ID first. That's right. Who said that?
Denise.
Dennis, yes. So Dennis, you're absolutely correct. The one that comes first are IDs. And if I had to put a percentage just to be obnoxious, no, if I had to put a percentage just to be obnoxious, I'm going to make it a little high. I would say 98% of the time, people are IDs, And so it's okay, but you have to be careful because when you receive all of these IDs, you sort of put them in a box and then you organize them into opportunities and IDs. So we'll do some exercise in just a second so you see what. So IDs come first. What do you think comes second?
I'm going to guess tactics for a second.
Yes. Very good guess. Excellent guess. Yes. And why did you guess tactics? What gave you that?
Because I feel like you've been really focusing on the difference between strategy and tactics. And so I feel like there's an important difference there that you want us to know.
So you answering as a psychologist based on me, and that's pretty good too. Reading the person asking the question. Yeah. So you got it correct. I wish you said it's because there's a direct connection between IDs and tactics oftentimes. Because people, when they have IDs, most of the time they are tactical IDs. And that's why I said, be careful because you're going to be so tactical. You have to fight that normal trait that people have. Because people are very tactical because they have an ID and they convert the ID into action, into what we're going to do. And so we need more TikTok posts. So what's the tactic? Create more content, TikTok content. Okay. Oh, I think that's great. And then they come and say, the strategy is to have a TikTok account where we have someone that posts every day. That's not a strategy. That's an ID, which is only essentially presenting tactics. Okay. So what are we talking about right now? It's nobody's fault. I mean, don't take it the wrong way, but that's what's hard. It usually takes most students till the last day to figure what we're talking about right now. It's like this concept of IDs, tactics, lower level, higher level. And when you are in the next class, like even in the middle of the next class, I think almost everybody finds this subject not that difficult anymore, but it takes a while because you are not trained to think this way because the normal inclination is IDs. So here I force it. So now what I want to do is be very honest with you. it's okay to think ideas first and tactics. But what happens is you have to think in terms of column. So it's like you create like an Excel and you have 4 columns, you know, a word table, you have 4 columns. And every time someone says something, you put them in the column. So you don't say, oh, you're just saying an ID. We don't want ID. Just tell me opportunities and strategies. And then suddenly nobody speaks anymore. So you don't want to be in a position where nobody speaks. You want to be in a position where people just fire information. And so then it's true that your table, after 30 minutes, looks very weak on the opportunity and strategy side. But what you do is then you look at your tactics and your ideas and you massage them into a higher order. What's the bigger idea above that ID? What's the bigger idea above that ID? Above. And after a while of doing this, then you go, okay, now we've got the you know, it's almost like you have to think like a table of content. Imagine you're creating a book and you're creating a table of content. And essentially you can't have 70 chapters. So suddenly you look at those 70 chapters and you say how to group them into 6. And then what you do is you do it's a mathematical concept. It's called factor analysis. So if you go on Google and you put factor analysis is a mathematical model that looks at a lot of data and sort of organize this data into 3 sets of data, because this data somehow have something in the data that makes them look like they go well within 3 sets. But the computer that will do this factor analysis will not give you the name of the 3 sets. It would just tell you based on very complicated formula that you never want to learn because you forget it 2 minutes, not 2 minutes, 10 seconds. I mean, me, 5 seconds after I forget the formula. So you don't want to learn it, but you want to learn why people do factor analysis, which is not just like some intelligent professor or fancy thing. It's useful. And so you factor analyze the data into 3 sets. And then you look at the 3 sets, and then you think about the name of those 3 sets. So it's the same thing. Someone comes with 76 chapters, you look at them, and eventually you want to be able to group them in higher level, higher order. So this is an exercise that I recommend, like deeply recommend, being very open to that table. And so I have the hoist. And so once you have the table, then when you present it, you don't present it ID, tactics, opportunity, strategies. Then you just move the column. And you just pretend that you were the most intelligent person because you are thinking opportunities, ID, strategies, and tactics. But nobody has to know that this never came out that way. So then, and that's why I said, you remember the first presentation last week, I said it was very good, but you repeated many times the opportunities. And so you have to be careful not to do that, is you need to tell us really what's the problem, what's the solution, all based on what opportunities, done. And that convinced us at this time, and then unfold the rest of the story, which goes into the tactics. And so here's an example, as you would have an overall opportunity. So it's like a really high level opportunity, the most strategic one, and then into very specific opportunities, like details opportunities, which would be maybe a lower level, more tactical. So could we call it the strategic opportunities and the tactical opportunities? Yeah, you could do that. That would work because that's sort of the idea. And then you would have the ID. So why would you want to have an ID there? Well, you would, because you don't always present to, and I'm not trying to make myself sound good, but you don't always present to a marketing professor. 99.9% of the time you present to people that are not marketing professor outside of an academic arena. And I hope that you do that very soon. Oh, let me see. James, are you here? Oh, yes.
Yes, I'm here. How's it going?
Very good. Nice to see you. Thank you for taking the time. Sorry, I was carried in my presentation, and
Of course.
I was unfolding.
Of course, no worries.
And so thank you for joining us. James has offered to come to class to talk to you about his own experience. I had a great pleasure working with James in the previous cohort. James was someone that was very together all the time, listening, and he was a very good student in terms of his amount of attention, and also the fact that he was facing challenges, not like something that was turning him off, but I could see every time he was like, okay, no problem. You know, the number of times that I stopped him on his team to tell him to start over, and he would start over and all that. So I have a very good memory of James in my class last cohort. And so I told him, you know, you are hopefully we hear some good news, and you working at Universal Music. Good luck with that. And I said, would you want to take just a few minutes to come to talk to the students about, you know, why taking this class, not just for the sake of finishing and graduating, which is wonderful in itself, but also for the impact this could have as a musician, as a manager in music, and what could it do, and what has it done to you?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So as Professor Vigneron had mentioned, I was in the class of 2021, so I was cohort 8. So we started, or our class with Professor Vigneron was pretty much what you guys are doing right now. You guys are looking at an artist from the VOVE program at CSUN, and hoping to work with this artist to either push them, you know, higher up into the industry, or work on some sort of creative strategy that, you know, aligns with what you guys are doing in terms of research, and how you can present this and, you know, kind of package it nicely for this artist. I know that you guys are on, you know, somewhat of a time limit, so I would say that's probably, you know, one of the biggest concerns that I had at the time, and, you know, getting the campaign running and being able to put something together in such a short period of time, while also balancing out the other projects that you guys have in your classes, as well as the final comp exam. But yeah, this class was imperative to understanding how to build that marketing strategy, learning about positioning, and, you know, really understanding what you want out of this artist's talent, and then, you know, what this artist wants out of this project, and what are all the valuable pieces of information that you guys are getting from this class that you can, you know, translate it over into the real world. So it looks like right now, you guys, so I'm assuming we're talking about the SWOT. We just got into the SWOT.
Yes.
The opportunities, and you had mentioned this earlier, the opportunities are something that we went over a lot, and it seems like there's a lot, it almost seems unending in terms of what the actual opportunities available to you are. Just when you feel like you've nailed all of them, there's definitely more to, like, kind of return to what we were doing, and rethink things, and analyze things, and come up with more concrete examples of opportunities. I would say that the opportunities phase is probably one of the most important out of the 4 components of the SWOT analysis. We've already looked at the internal, you know, sides of things, whether that be the strengths or the weaknesses, and now we're looking at the opportunities and how we can really take this campaign to the next level. So I guess overall, like, some of the things that you want to look for within the opportunities are concrete things. You don't want to look at ideas, or you don't really want to look at, like, dreams or goals. These need to be concrete, you know, pieces of evidence or trends within the business that you guys have done research on that you can actually capitalize on. Opportunities kind of gets confused with things that you want to do or that you wish you could do, but in reality, they're things that are actually going on in the real world that will benefit you and the artist. Based on research, we used a lot of Nielsen, you know, media-based to get streaming data, to see where Alex Ritchie, who was the artist that we were working with last year, to see where he was doing well in terms of streaming, to see if there was any radio play, whether that be local or on a national level, and then to really look at his core demographic. So take the time to get to know your artists, you know, talk to them, ask them what their aspirations are, where they see their career going, and also ask them how they see themselves within the positioning frame of reference. That'll give you an idea of, you know, how they view themselves as a brand and as an image, and you can, you know, kind of collectively put your heads together to understand how to further position this artist in a more efficient and effective way within the overall project. Let's see. So some things to consider as well would be differentiating if you want to consolidate the current market that you're in with this artist and what their current market looks like, and consolidating it, or, you know, expanding on that and possibly tapping into other markets. You know, some of these other markets may be artists that are similar to this artist, It may be other markets that have similar demographics in terms of listenership, and the types and age groups that are listening to this genre. I'm not sure what genre this artist is and what this artist is about, but try to look for other opportunities in, think outside the box. Look at opportunities outside of what you're already looking at, and see if there are any areas of improvement that can align with the current project that you're working on, the trajectory of the campaign that you have so far. Look at the population ecology of that, and why certain populations within an overall sample of an ecosystem or an overall sample of a population is trending a certain way. Why is this age focusing on this type of media? Why is this age listening to this type of music? Those are all things that you'd want to consider, and those are opportunities that you can look into that will essentially benefit you and your overall experience with the campaign. Opportunities they're important because we're looking at the big picture, and you eventually want to funnel the big picture ideas down to more specific tactics and strategies, which it sounds like you started to talk about today, and you'll get into that further as the weeks progress, and then you'll also have that in your next class as well. But look at tech, look at artificial intelligence, look at virtual reality and augmented reality, things like that. Those are good places that are really hot right now, and those are platforms that a lot of artists are kind of crossing over into. With the whole NFT space, we threw some NFT ideas around with our artist last year, and we floated those by him, and he was really stoked on those ideas, and that was something that we eventually had incorporated into our project as an overall strategy that we wanted to have in our campaign. It's a really there's a lot in the NFT space. We could talk about that all night, but there's definitely opportunities for technology and the advancement of technology and how that can be incorporated into your overall strategy. Adjacent markets is what I had mentioned earlier. Picking up on trends that other smaller markets may be offering, and see how those can be aligned with what you guys are talking about and what your goals are with this project. E-commerce and social media is huge right now. It always has been. I think e-commerce, we're seeing e-commerce spike in a much older demographic. I think a lot of that has to do with the pandemic. There's a lot of online ordering and online trading in terms of the e-commerce space, and it's hitting a much older demographic out of necessity and out of the fact that we were in lockdown for over a year. TikTok and other emerging platforms are huge right now. They're breathing a lot of new life into how labels do research and how A&R discovers talent, and how A&R really pushes artists and works music on radio and other platforms and things like that. Catalog music right now is older music, catalog music within the record labels are being streamed more so than they were before, and I think that has a lot to do with apps like TikTok and these new emerging social media platforms, and being able to pull songs and use songs that weren't that streaming wasn't really capitalizing on before. And then there's a lot of niche markets. So looking into the niche markets, looking into things that you wouldn't expect your artist to necessarily fall into, but after doing an immense amount of research, you've realized, okay, my artist is really into this. He's something that we had talked about with Alex Ritchie was his family and his religion, and we had floated that by, and how he was a Catholic, and I think he had gone to a Catholic school, and we kind of did research on, okay, what cultural backgrounds would he be engaging with the most, and what are some trends within his political and social belief system that we can align some of these campaign strategies with. So without getting into too much detail, you want to look at the overall picture of, I don't know if you've discussed the pest analysis yet, but the political, economic, social factors. Okay. And then, kind of narrow it down and figure out what your tactics and what your strategies would be. I would recommend highly leaning on, I mentioned earlier, Mediabase, if you have access to Mediabase, and Nielsen Music Connect, and reading a lot about pop culture can help as well. And you can find trending opportunities there. But for me, I think the big takeaway from doing that project was understanding how to launch, really how to launch a campaign within a limited amount of time and a limited frame of reference. Obviously, you're constricted with your financials. You don't have a label backing you to put this campaign off the ground. But you shouldn't really need to spend a lot of money. This is all kind of in the theoretical world, right? and yeah, I mean, opportunities, when you think you've had enough, you don't. You know, you got to kind of head back to the drawing board and reevaluate all the opportunities that you thought you've come up with, and just keep pounding those out. And over time, you'll kind of start to streamline those and develop and hone in on what those opportunities are that would best benefit you and the artist.
Thank you very much, James. That's wonderful.
Yep.
You know, it makes, I think, a big difference, because they can see it can be done. You've done it, and it's a question of focus. And also that way, I want to see the students to hear from you. You know, that once you think you've got the opportunities, it's very likely that you don't. And so that feeling of frustration, either you have just the frustration and you don't get out of it, or you just say, okay, so what do I need to do? And so I remember you being one student like this. It's like, okay, so I don't have the opportunity. Okay, so what do I need to do? And you kept on going, and going, and going. And being a business person is like this. You know, you can't stop at the first obstacle. You have to keep on going. And opportunities, if you don't have them, you can't go anywhere. And so you have to get them. And so in the next class, in some way, it's even more important, because there's nothing. We're not telling you what you need to do. Is you have to find everything from scratch in the entrepreneurship class.
Right. Yeah, I think it comes down to, focusing on the opportunities and understanding that it takes time to develop what those opportunities are, but also being in touch with news and current events outside of the music business, because that'll really influence, what your decisions are in terms of how you're going to pursue these opportunities, because a lot of them don't really necessarily only come from the music industry.
Exactly.
And you really see that in the PEST analysis, where we're talking about, politics, law, governance, social factors that are going on. So a lot of that does happen within the industry, but at a higher level, there's much more going on that has a pretty significant effect on how you can pursue these opportunities with a young artist coming from CSUN.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having taken your time away to join us tonight. Thank you very much. I'm sure the cohort 9 is delighted to see you, and we are excited to have you today with us. Join us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. You guys are in good hands. Good luck.
Thank you, and good luck with Universal Music.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Let me know.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
I will. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. That's wonderful. You see, when you have students that essentially care for the program, he didn't hesitate 1 second. He says, oh no, I want to tell them. And he said something that I want to repeat. He said a lot of things, but one thing I want to repeat, because you'll hear me on Saturday. And so that way you've just heard him from him. He said, be careful. Opportunities are not what you are going to do. Opportunities are facts that you take advantage of. He said it, and you're probably going to hear me say it that many times. So what you're going to do are strategies, what you're going to do are tactics, and opportunities are not what you are going to do. Opportunities are just facts, pure, simple facts. He talked about the PEST analysis. I have that coming. So I'm glad. You see, you can tell that he's using all of this because he's remembering everything. So that's fantastic. So someone was asking about the OIST. The OIST does not exist. If you Google the OIST, you're not going to find it. I develop a lot of tools because I find those tools as I go and do consulting, or use it in my business or teaching. That's actually why I like teaching, because I like sharing my little findings, my little treasure and acronyms, and sharing with the students. And then when I share it with the students, I'm excited to see that they use it. It makes sense to them. So you can also use the OIST for yourself. I will send you the OIST, now that you've seen it. Maybe it's going to help you better prepare and better understand the sequence between all of these. So let me go. For some reason, I want to see that. Okay, let me share the PowerPoint. So I was just thinking of something that simple, like tattoo removal, or just tattoo. The idea is, I think I should open a tattoo removal clinic. That's the idea. Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Well, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, I don't know, because it's an idea. You cannot measure an idea unless you hear the opportunities. So the statistic is there's more and more people doing tattoos. So if there's less and less people doing tattoos, trying to remove tattoo may not be a good idea. Then I look at what are the most things that are being tattooed. Name of husband and wife is number one. Inspirational, emotional, symbolic words, that's number two. Some landscape, flowers, and then some team. So to me, that's good. Why? Because 45% of the people divorce. So how many people are married and have tattoos? That's the next statistics that you want to know. Not because you're a dark person and bad person. It's just that you know that's what they're going to tattoo. And since there's 45% of divorce, and if there's millions of them that get married and do tattoo, it's just a question of waiting. You just wait behind and they will show up eventually, because there's almost half the divorce and they're going to want the tattoo being removed. And so the result is to therefore justify the idea. Is you can justify the idea with the story, and the story is the opportunity is justifying the idea. The opportunity is there is a trend that justify the idea of doing tattoo removal. Now, it's not always like this. This is a different example. So people have funguses on their finger. So then you can sell a fungus cream. So a problem, how many people have fungus cream? One, that's not a business. Millions of people, it's a business. How many fungus cream exist? One, great. There could be a second one if there's millions of people. There's millions of cream and millions of people, maybe it's not that good. So you're just constantly doing ratio. Business is about finding gap. But then you go, yes, there's people with funguses, but there's people with funguses and people that don't like to think that they could have a bug on them. And then you go, oh, how many people don't like to think that they have a bug? It's like they don't have the fungus, but there's just the concept of, ooh, you could have a bug that's right there waiting to create a fungus. And then you go, oh, that exists. How many are these people? And then you find that it's a lot of people, millions of people that would buy a cream, not to cure a fungus, but to get rid of a bug that they cannot see, that is doing nothing. Do they need the cream? No. But they once they know that there is a bug, they want to get rid of the cream. So then you create a little cartoon character and you add it to the fungus. And you say Digger is there and it's creating the fungus. If he's not creating the fungus, he can't wait to be creating the fungus. Unless you don't do anything, Digger is going to create the fungus, and then you're going to have an ugly fungus, and who wants an ugly fungus and all this thing. And you see, they keep designing Digger, and Digger is laughing, and Digger is there, and Digger is waiting. And you want to get rid of Digger, and you want to recognize the problem. And you want to get rid of it before Digger becomes too comfortable under your nail and starts propagating that fungus. So you get, it's prevention medicine. Ooh, so cure medicine, how many people? 1 million. Prevention medicine, how many? 5 million. Okay, there's a business. I can do prevention. So some people will say this is called fear marketing. Yeah, of course, it's called fear marketing. It's used all the time. So again, business is about solving a problem or creating one. Oh, wow, that's nasty. Creating a problem? Well, you don't really create. What you do is you just reveal it. You just whisper in the person's ear, I'm not saying there's this problem, but I'm just saying it's possible. And then the person never asks for what's the possibility. And then if you ask for the possibility, you say, it could be a big possibility. But then you say, what do you mean big? Well, I mean, 1%. Do you want to be the 1% that could suffer from this? I mean, and then people go 1%. Well, You don't tell them 99% of the people are okay. You tell them there's 1% that really suffer. There's 1% is their life is horrible. And then they hear that and they go, I don't want to be the 1%. So now this is because I want you to understand that it's all you do. So then you're going to say, okay, but in the music industry, how do you do that? Well, you're offering entertainment, you're offering an emotion, you're offering an affiliation, you're offering all of this, and people therefore are looking for the right match. Rhythm, you're offering comfort, you're offering pleasure, you're offering sensation, feelings, all right? All of this, so you're looking for something. And that's why maybe where there's some nostalgia songs that come back, or sound, or use of certain instruments, or affiliation, or like or some references, or something like this. And so the next thing I want to talk about is, therefore, you need to do some research to find these opportunities. And to do research to find these opportunities, you want to collect some data and you want to analyze this data. Normal process is, one, defining the problem, identifying the methods of data collection, collecting the data, and then interpreting the findings. The most complicated part is to identify the problem. Why is nobody following our social media campaign? Why is nobody buying tickets? Why is nobody downloading the songs? So there's a problem that you're finding. Then you find what's the best method, but the most complicated thing is to see what really is the problem. The problem is that we're not selling enough. That's too vague, that's too broad. We're not selling enough because people perceive the product to be too old, too expensive, not available, with the wrong features. So always defining the problem is the first step, and it's the most complicated step. Everything else is somewhat easier. Identifying what is the best method is not that complicated once you have identified the problem. Different problems work with different methods. Then the next second thing, more complicated, will be interpreting the data. And it's more complicated when this data is qualitative. So I'm going to talk about what's qualitative data in a minute. But you have two types of data. You have secondary and primary. Secondary already exists. Primary is you collecting it. So the easiest one to collect is the one that already exists versus collecting primary data. So then you have qualitative and quantitative. So this is very important. This is not something that you do. So let me spend a few minutes explaining that. This is critical for the sort of the rest of your life to understand the difference between these two. Quantitative research worries about statistical significance. Qualitative research does not worry about statistical significance. Quantitative research worries about asking few questions, not too many, a few questions to lots of people, versus qualitative is the opposite, is to ask lots of questions to few people. So they're looking for different reasons and different answers. Quantitative is trying to look at the frequency. How many women said that their favorite color is green? How many men said that their favorite color is green? How many young men, how many old men, how many young women? So they're looking for statistical representativeness of an answer based on a specific demographic. And so they want to be able to anticipate and to predict people's behavior based on this quantitative research. The most common method is called a survey. So you want to do a survey, and so that's for the quantitative analysis. The problem with quantitative is you do not understand, and you do not get the answer of why. Why people, why do people floss their teeth? Why is it they floss their teeth? Or why do people go to the gym? It's like if I ask you, why do people go to the gym? What do you think is the answer?
They want to look better.
They want to look better. They want to lose weight. They want to have energy. they want to stay healthy. Okay, so that's what they say. But then you go, look better. Who answered this question, look better?
Denise.
Denise. So you're right. But what, then you turn down the light and you ask them, what do you mean to look better? Why would someone want to look better? And then you turn down the light. The what?
To feel better.
To feel?
Yeah.
I thought you said to appeal better. And that's more the
Oh, no.
answer.
No.
People go to the gym when you have all the light turned down and they tell you the truth, it's for sex. But you could never get that into a survey. You can only get that when you have the person in front of you and you say, but so you want to feel better. What does that mean? You want to appeal better. What does that mean? And then you say, why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to have a six-pack? Why do you want to have all of this? And at the end, there is an answer, which is the true why. The true why does not come from a survey. A survey is only going to tell you how many men said for health reason and how many women said for weight, and how many young women told you for, I don't know, some other objective sort of sound good reason. So sounds good are put inside a survey. If you put sex inside a survey, most people would not answer sex. Why is that? Because they would not even realize that's why they're doing it. So that's why you have to do the qualitative research. So what is that? That's an interview and that's a focus group when you're actually talking to the people. So it is very important when you do research to not underestimate the quality of data that you can get when you actually speak directly to the people. And that's, I mean, James couldn't say everything, in a few minutes, but that's one thing that is very, very important. And I urge you to treat very seriously, which is, we are not going to believe that opportunities come from the most expensive databases. Opportunities do not come from the most expensive databases. I had, not so much anymore, but 15 years ago, I had students cheat. They would go online, they would Google reports, and then they would find some reports. They would pay $100 for the report. They would download it, and then they would print it and give it to me and say, we're going to get an A because we paid $100 for a report. They said, that's a lot of money. I'm a student. That was 15 years ago. And then they would equate how much I paid and what grade I should get from the professor. Then I would read the report. I would say, there's something very weird about this report. It doesn't look like a student did it, but it's not really a good report. Then I would give them a C- or something like this, not knowing that they downloaded it. And then they would get a C-, and then the team, because it would be a teamwork, they would fight one another. And eventually one would leak, professor, I have to come forward. I want to tell you the truth. We actually paid for this report. I told the other students it was really bad, but because we spent $100, they say it's got to be good. And I said, yeah, but the students, how often do they buy reports? Not very often, never. So they don't know the quality of reports, but because they paid, they figure it was good. So it's the same thing. People pay for a lot of money for databases because they think they're going to find opportunities. Databases, most of the time, what they do is they confirm. A little me like me with the tattoo thing. I say, I would go, you know what? I'm going to do a clinic to do tattoo removal. Based on my own knowledge, I think people change their mind. I bought this tie a year ago. I think in 6 months, I don't like this tie anymore. I bought this shirt 3 months ago. I think in 5 months, I don't like this shirt. I think people change their mind. That's my gut feeling. People change their mind. And therefore, I will do tattoo removal. Then you find, I need an investor to give me $1 million to spend $1 million in my business. I can't tell him or tell her, hey, invest in my tattoo clinic removal because I feel it's going to be good. Trust me, bro. And your investor looks at me, $1 million? I don't know. I need something better than that. Then you spend the money and get a good database that tells you these many people divorce, these many people change their mind. And then you can tell the investor, look, I got it in AC Nielsen. I spend a lot of money. Then that's the time that you need to spend. But to find the opportunities, most of the time, is you find it from talking to people. I think Rebecca had her hand for a while up. So if you don't mind, Alexa, I'm just going to ask her if she still has a question.
Oh, I just was wondering if you could go back to the previous slide really quick. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Alexa.
So what you were just talking about with the, like using the expensive databases to kind of confirm maybe, and it seems to me that it seems like you're trying to find the opportunities afterwards. So are you saying like in some instances it's fine to like work from the idea and use data to confirm? Because you can always find
that.
Confirm.
Of course, and that's why I call it the OIST.
The OIST, yeah.
The OIST, but it's 95% of the time it should be the ITOS or whatever.
Yeah.
ID always come first, and people try to confirm them with databases. But what I'm saying is, don't do the shower moment where you have an ID. What you do is you go talk to the people and you say, you know what? Tell me, what do you have any problems? Do you run into problems? Do you see anything in your life? What's your problems? Do you like those artists? Which artists do you like? Why do you like them? Why you don't like them? Why would listen to some song? What do you think? Oh, I never heard of it. It's pretty good. His name is Nish Wati. What is it that you like? What is it that you don't like? Right? And then from these, you're gonna find some answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're gonna go, you know what? Oh, that was an interesting answer. That was really good. Like a little bit like I did with James. I said, oh, you know what he said? He said, be careful. Opportunities are not what you're going to do. He said a lot of things. That was a 12-minute talk. That was only 6 seconds in his talk. But that was maybe the most important, is be careful. Opportunities are not what you're going to do, but they have to be facts. I mean, that's 4 seconds. And that's the centerpiece of his presentation. So therefore, when you go do an interview, these people are going to say things that you've missed, and that they were gold. You know, a little bit like Denise when she says you go to the gym to feel good. I say, what do you mean to feel good? Because eventually you want to drill to the thing of sex. I mean, if you look at the commercial for a gym called Equinox, there is no confusion that they are trying to sell sex. No confusion. It's super, super, super obvious. I don't think I have any here. Oh, yes, I do. Here is an Equinox ad. This is a gym. Equinox is rather expensive. And these are the ads. Do you think they're selling, I mean, do you think they're selling health or feeling good? No, they are selling sex. They read my memo, you know. So I'm just telling you, it's very important to get to the bottom of things. So now, what are the 3 layers of research? Is you have exploratory research, descriptive research, and causal research. I only want you to do the first layer, which is exploratory. And exploratory is you research existing data and you go do some interviews and focus groups. That's all you should do, which means that should you do a survey, a quantitative research? No, do not do a survey. A survey is 1,000 people. It's 500 people. It's too much work. You know, a survey is not going to tell you why. And like James said, you don't have the time. You want to have the answer of why. It's not going to come from a survey. It's going to come from an interview. So do interview. Descriptive research, these are the surveys. And the idea is to get some opportunity to do hypothesis testing. And then causal research, it's experimental research, it's a laboratory research, and it's done by very large corporations in order to look at cause and effects and really measure the cause and effects. So what is the SWOT? You know what it is, and what is the PEST? He talked about the PEST. So the PEST is PEST, political, economical, social, and technological. The PEST is essentially the environment, if you want. You know, if I go back very quickly, if you allow me to jump back to this, it's this, but it's a smaller, it's a mini mini environment. Remember, political, economical, technological, then there's the social is the cultural. So why is there, Professor, this is so confusing, why there is a pest and why there's another marketing environment? Because there's people like me that create the OIST, and maybe there's another professor somewhere that created something that has a name, acronym that is slightly different. There's different professors, different cultures, and everybody has their own little acronyms. The pest is good, but the pest is a mini version of the environment. There's more factors to look inside the environment. So I would rather have you look at this environment, which has more layers, that's the micro and the macro, versus the pest is a simplified version of this. But I don't want you to not know what is the pest. If someone says, should we do the pest analysis? You know, you go work for Disney and they're going to say, we need to do a new pest analysis. And essentially it means a smaller version of the environment analysis, okay? The other thing is the pest analysis is collecting information in order to describe. And in this description, then you have to do an identification of what are the opportunities. So when you do describe the political situation, it's for the sake of extracting an opportunity. When you're doing the economical analysis, it's for the sake of extracting opportunities, economical or technological or social opportunities, okay? So there is a moment where you extract information, and there's another moment where you analyze it to see if there's something in there that you could take advantage of, some facts, okay? So just something here. These were students, they won June 2009 Best Student Entrepreneur in America. What did they do? Is they realized there was a lot of people that stayed home more and more and more and more. So can you imagine with the pandemic and the way the world has changed? People are more home than ever, right? And they've taken the habit of staying home. Anyway, so they started thinking about creating kits, simple kits that people could use home. And so they started with the first kit that they had back then was the mushroom kit, where you could grow mushroom in your house. They became very successful. What was the opportunity? People are home, people are bored, people want to do things at home that they can use, and they learn something while doing it. What about doing mushroom? Well, do they like mushroom? Do they eat mushroom? They found data that supported that. Then they found some investors, and they had this company that became very successful. This one is called Fiesta Auto Insurance. Is it successful? Very successful. Why is it successful? Because they had an idea? No, because they have an opportunity. What is it? The Hispanic people in the United States, they are looking for insurance, and they want to get an insurance from someone that speaks their language. Let's look at some example. Which one is an opportunity? Is it one or is it two? 35% of pools in SoCal are in need of repair, according to the SoCal Pool Bureau. And two says, Max could offer an online bidding platform for pool repair. And so I see Lamia, she puts her finger and exile and all that. Yes, you're correct, is one. Number two is wrong because number two tells you what you need to do. Opportunities are not what you're going to do. Max could do X, Y, and Z. We don't care what Max could do. It's like a journalist that says, tomorrow it's going to rain by 5 inches. It's not saying you should buy umbrellas. If I tell you tomorrow you should buy an umbrella because it's going to be raining, I'm telling you what to do, therefore it's wrong. If I tell you it's going to rain tomorrow, that's a fact. Then you can do something else. You could say, you know what, the outcome is I am not going to fill up my pool. That's one possibility. I'm going to buy an umbrella. That's another possibility. Is I'm going to buy new boots. So that's why facts are much more interesting than what you're going to do. Because with facts, there's so many things you could do. Next one. Which one is an opportunity and which one is not? There is an opportunity to use online and wireless technology to allow people to use their car to give taxi services. Max could use his entrepreneurial skills to offer a competitive bidding online platform for taxi services, kind of like Uber. Which one is an opportunity? But yes, it's one again. Because the two is telling you what you can do. One is telling you that there's people that could provide services. by using some, because there's a technology. The technology is the opportunity. Okay, so good. If you understand that, that's all I wanted you to do. Now there's another skill that is very important in marketing. And it's not so much the object of today, but I want to bring it up. And I want to bring it in a way that in marketing, you have to stereotype. I know it's not politically correct to do that now and look at people and label people or whatever and all this. But to be effective, you do have to stereotype people. Is this person old? Is this person young? Is this person rich? Is this person poor? Is this person educated? In marketing, we do this all the time. It's not because we are racist, or it's not because we are, I don't know, ethnocentric or whatever. It's because that's how you can be effective, is by knowing the people. So if I say, which car does this person drive?
A big truck.
Could be a big truck or this car. Okay, so that's an exercise. That's an exercise that you may have done many times in your life. And it's an exercise that is very important. And we are going to do it together. I'm going to tell you, okay, so you're telling me the opportunity is X, Y, and Z. And then I'm going to look at you and say, who are the targets? And then you're going to say, oh, who are the targets? And the simple way to do it, remember, I told you to look at persona, is you give me a picture. So you give me a picture and then you tell me a story. Here's another one. Which car does he drive?
Mercedes.
Mercedes. A nice Mercedes?
Yeah.
That's right. So he drives something fancy, very different from the photo before. So he drives a wrap Louis Vuitton Mini Cooper. Maybe. I'm just, you know, that was my choice. But anyway, that's the point, is that you have to be very good at shifting between products and people. I show you a product, you tell me who it is for. I show you a person, you tell me what product they're buying. And that's a very artificial exercise, but you have to do it in order to train yourself and to think like a marketer. A marketer, there's a problem, there's a solution. Who's saying the problem? What solution? It's not the same solution for everyone. If you do this, you fail. You have to make the solution for that specific person that you're focusing on. Yes, someone had a question, I think.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I just was wondering how often, just because like I think that we can all make flash assumptions about people, but I am just wondering how often would you say those flash assumptions are accurate? Because like I can look at someone and say, I think they would buy this, this, and this, and be completely wrong about them. And so I know that you're training, like we're trying to train our brain to make kind of flash judgments, but what about the possibility that we're not right about those flashes?
An epistemologist will tell you that the less information you have, the more likely that you're wrong. And the more you're making a flash assumption, the more likely that you're wrong. But he would tell you that with experience, you become better at flashes in the sense that you have less failures. And therefore you can, you know, it's a little bit, this has happened to me. I worked with some managers, they were terrible. They were the worst people. And then I worked with some managers and I was like, man, I think this girl is a genius. I think this girl is a genius. She senses things, she knows things, she gets it because she was in her environment. So a true DNA marketing person is not correct all the time, but it's more correct and has an instinct for the direction. So you just save time, but you don't assume that you are God and you know it all. It's just with experience is you make better guesses and you just save time. And when you look at the data, you know if it smells right or if it smells wrong. Strange, isn't it? But it's training, it's practice. And then there may be things that, you know, it's like the music. Someone may be playing an instrument, someone listen to it and say, that's pretty good. And then you go, what? It's really good? It's terrible. I'm watching the Olympic Games right now. I don't know if you're watching it. And today I watched, just at lunchtime, the guys skiing down on a jump. And they jump and they make like many, many twists in the air. I was looking at some of these guys and I was like, wow, this one is the best, 80 points. It's like, wow, I thought that was more better than the guy before. I don't understand why that one got a 90 and that one got 80 and all that. Because I'm not a ski jumper, you know. So when they do 8 flip in the air or 6 triple loops or whatever, it all sort of looks the same to me. But if I was doing this for 1 year, I probably get it faster. And you can see the commentator every time he says, oh, that's going to be above 90. Oh, that's going to be under 90. And he's pretty right most of the time because he's done it many times. And therefore, he knows when it's above 90 and when it's under 90. Me, they all look like 100 unless they crash. Okay, so do you understand? Did that give you the feeling of the thing? So it's a little bit the same. Is you have to sort of train yourself like this. So the first inclination is you train yourself. The second inclination is you don't think you know it all. And that's why the first class, I was teaching you about the epistemologist. It was not because I'm out of subject and I'm sort of a crazy French person. It's because I want you to, it's like I'm giving you the full spectrum of the thinking, not just the focus on what SWOT analysis is. It's the whole package. All right, so I already jumped on this. What I want to show you now very quick, I think this one is really good. And we'll take a break after that. The next 2 examples, and we'll be done with examples for today. So this one, again, you're gonna be saying, oh, again, some wine and spirits. But this was just amazing because this was Underwood Wine. And they are just another winery and they're selling nothing. They're just broke day after day after day after day. And then they said, you know what? We have a few dollars left. Let's throw a party. So they threw a party and the party insurance said, sorry, you cannot have glass bottle. And they said, we can't have glass bottle, but it's a wine party. How can we not have glass bottle? And then one person says, you know what? You got to be smart. What we're going to do is we're going to put them into aluminum can, the wine. And they did this and they did the party in aluminum can. And people drank it and so forth. And at the end of the party, people asked for the can. And then the staff was asking for the can. Everybody was asking for the can. And then the morning after, they all went, oh, that was a good party. That was a good party. And then they say, what are we going to do now? And then one person says, you know what? Why don't we do canned wine? That was the first company doing canned wine. And they went from making $20,000 a year to $1 billion. From that one change. That was crazy. And they were the first one that now there's hundreds of companies that do aluminum can wine. There's nothing fancy anymore. Super successful. So that's a big story. It's a story that you can find on Google, Instagram, all over the place. Very successful. So what was the opportunity? The opportunity is people don't all want glass wine because they use it in situations where they would rather have lesser volume. They go camping, they go picnic, and all of this. So there was a problem that nobody had ever solved. And those people solved the problem by coincidence. And sometimes business happens that way, but I don't recommend it. You don't want to be successful by coincidence, which is not the case of the next exercise. And this is kind of cool because it's a CSUN student, a marketing CSUN student. This marketing CSUN student was looking at his grandma and she was taking pill day after day, taking pill for blood pressure and all of this. And then one morning was with her and she says, oh, I need to be careful. My blood pressure is bad and blah, blah, blah. Did I take my pill? And he said, well, I don't know. She says, I need to know if I took my pill because I can't double up on my prescription because then I'll be more sick. And if I don't take the pill, I'm going to be sick. And then he said, you know what? That's interesting. Grandma, you have a problem. And she said, oh, what do you mean? Yeah, you have a problem with this thing that you don't remember if you remember if you took it or didn't take it. I'm a marketing CSUN graduate student. I have an ID. I'm going to make the RX timer cap, which is a cap that you open and close, and every time it tells you the last time that you opened it. So you know if you took your pill. It's very simple. I'm solving the problem. So then I remember he came to see me. He says, what do I do? I think I have something really good. By the way, this student is a multi-millionaire now because he sells it to all the pharmacies in the USA and it's approved by Kaiser and all of this stuff. Okay, this was just a few years ago. I saw him, he was just there. Hi, I have this ID. And now he's a multi-millionaire. And all the things I'm telling you is much better than crypto. I tell you this, because you just have to find your gap. The crypto is a gamble. It's like the Underwood wine. It's just got to be lucky. It's very difficult. Versus this, you just said, yeah, I learned this in the class. It's very simple. Now I need to go. I have the opportunity, but I need to materialize it with an expensive data. So I said, find an expensive database. Find an expensive database that tells you how many people take pills in America every day. Then finds another thing that says, after what age do you forget things? And it says, starting at 50, you forget things. And then how many after 50 takes pills? How many pills? How much do they spend? How rich is the pharmaceutical industry that they can afford this little gizmo? Very rich, pharmaceutical industry, very rich. So the student says, that's it, I have all of this. I said, no, that's it, show me your presentation, and then go see the investor. Well, he didn't do 20 meetings, he did one, and everybody was throwing money on this thing and say, can I be your best friend and your investor? Okay, so that's what you need to do as a person in the music industry, is you need to find your gap. You need to find your problem, and you need to solve it with a solution. So now, to practice, you have Nishwaki. That's essentially where you are right now. And you have to find, by talking to people, by talking to your friends, by doing focus groups and having data on the side, doing secondary research, is you have to look for answers in order to come up with a story. And so that's why you're training on this. So I won't continue this concept. So we move outside of the concept of understanding what are opportunities, that there are facts. Now we're going into the concept that I've brushed before, which is this idea of strategy. So a strategy, there are big strategies, medium level strategies, even lower level strategies. After that, you go into high level tactics, medium level tactics, and then small tactics. You need to have some kind of order, vision of the weight of those ideas. And if they are heavyweight, very broad, they are strategies. If they are detailed, they become tactics. So to show the image of this from a picture perspective is I use this madrushka, those dolls, those wooden dolls, which open in half, and then you put all the dolls and they embed one in another. And that's what marketing is about, is you need to think about the difference between the details and the big picture, and how does this come together? So this slide is only to tell you that there's high level direction, there's broad direction, and there's lower level direction, there's small details. So I will look at some examples of strategies in just a minute, but there's a tool that you use, which is called the BCG matrix. The BCG matrix is a tool used in order to look at the impact of your product in your portfolio. So different products have a different impact, where some are growing and some are, you have a high percentage. So the one that you have a high percentage of sales, so therefore you're the leader in the market, and are in demand, are called the stars. The one that you have a high percentage, but is not in demand, is called a cow. So a cow is decreasing demand, but you have a large percentage. So therefore, you need to see if the cow becomes a dog, which is a low share and low growth. And therefore, the dog is a product that you will divest. You will not invest. You will, in fact, get rid of. The question mark is the one that either is a cow or it was a star that's changed, and or maybe it's going to become a star. The question mark is really the one that you don't know. It's shifting around because you have low market share, but it's in a high growth. So it's very likely that you can actually, by investing, by doing better marketing, it could become a star, because you may have started late, and that's why you have a low share. You have started when everybody has already launched a product, so you're coming from behind. So you're just taking little bit by little bit. So what should you remember from this? First, you should learn about this, because that's going to be in the quiz for sure. Maybe 2 questions, what is a low market share and high growth? Oh, it's a question mark. What is a low share and low growth? That's a dog. So simply what you need to remember. But you also need to remember this because analyzing people's portfolio is very interesting. So in the case of Nishwaki, it's not that easy because Nishwaki is still a recent company. So it doesn't have a portfolio that you can fully analyze. But if you're working for Universal Music, you would have many different artists with different songs, And then you'll be able to see where those songs vary and where those artists vary, because you can do that for an artist as well. You could do that within the genre. Very quickly, I want to show you the GE grid. The GE grid and the BCG matrix are the same thing. The only difference is the GE grid has more square. And so having more square gives you a little bit more precision, because before there was only 4 versus here you have 8. So that you gain in precision in using the GE. But the GE is not as famous. Then another concept I want to talk about is benchmarking. What is this? Benchmarking is really good because it's doing SW, strengths and weaknesses of your competitors. Why would you want to learn the strengths and weaknesses of your competitors? Because you want to learn where they're weak and what you can attack, and you want to learn where they're good, which is what you can sort of copy, in a legal way. And so you want to see if there is something that they are doing that you could be doing better than them. You want to try to copy the things that they are known for by making some little tweak on it to make it slightly better. You want to also look at what they're doing in terms of the relationship with the customers, their communication methods, their strategies, their positioning, their image, and sort of see and guess the direction where they're going. Maybe you want to see if they're going after certain opportunities and identify the opportunities they're going after to be better at going after the opportunities. So you want to learn when to defend and when to attack as a summary. So let's look at a few strategies. The basic strategies, it's also called the end-soft strategies, but it's 4 strategies that work probably 75% of the time. So if I had to ask you to learn 4 strategies and call it a day, that would be these. With these 4 strategies, essentially, 75% of the time what's going on. There's more than 4 strategies, there's hundreds of strategies, but those 4 summarize the 75% of the situation. So what they are, if you're selling the same product to the same people, it's called market penetration. So it's like you're Coca-Cola and you're trying to sell more Coke, more classic Coke, and you decide to do as a strategy, so this is not a low level, is you decide to do market penetration. So the big idea of market penetration, because that's not a tactic, it's a strategy, is to increase or decrease your prices. In that situation, probably decrease your prices, increase your distribution, do some slight modification of the product. Maybe you make different sizes of bottle. Maybe you use glass, plastic, aluminum, or whatever new technological bottling material you could be using. You use different marketing, that you expand the marketing. Maybe before you didn't sell in the airport, now you sell in the airport. So you try to sell more of the same product to the same people by increasing how much they buy. The next one, which is logical, is product development, is you deciding that you want to sell more soda, and so you are going to create a variation. So maybe you create Fanta, you create Sprite. So it's a variation of Coke in the sense that it's another sweet sparkling soda. And at that time, you decide to make a slight modification of the product because you want people to use more of it, more of the product that you make. So it's product development because it's a new product. So it's significantly new. It's not a minor change to the product, like the size of the bottle. It's a bigger change because it could be a different brand or a totally different looking product with a different packaging. Now, the variation from that is market development is when you sell the same product, but to a new market. So you just notice that most of the people that buy, and I make an assumption, it doesn't have to be true, but most people that buy Coke are mostly men and mostly younger men. So you do a campaign where you get more younger women to buy Coke. So you do market development, or you try to make a campaign where you want older people to buy Coke. So you find that older people, they drink coffee, and then you say, coffee is good, but it's going to make you too nervous, something like this. With Coke, you're going to get just the energy and not the stress. And then you try to sell this product to this same product to this new market. So you expand it. Then diversification, that's why I kept it for the end, because I also want you not to be too confused. This diagram is used by 100% of the people in the world, but there's a little point of confusion, which is that if you're doing a new product to a new target, it's not diversification. It has to be a significantly new product and significantly new target. So if I was to do a Diet Coke for older women, for example, using my example before, you would say, oh, that's diversification because it's a new target. You just told us that it's mostly young men that drink Coke. And if they don't, let's say they didn't do Diet Coke, and that's Diet Coke is definitely a new product compared to just Coke. So isn't that diversification? No, it's not. Why? Because diversification includes, entails that there's something significantly different. So it would be Coca-Cola making ice cream. So it's a ice cream, ice cubes. Sorry, ice cream Coke flavored ice cubes. Or it's like Coca-Cola tires, shampoo. Yeah, Coca-Cola shampoo. So Coca-Cola shampoo is a diversification. So if you know, it would be selling the same music to the same fan, market penetration, selling a new song, product development, selling artists in a new market. You know, they work in America, now you're going to sell them in Europe, market development. And then diversification is the becoming an actor. It's something else. Okay. So it's not the combination of the white and green that makes the yellow. Just remember this. I will not be nasty if I was to ask a question in the quiz. I'm not going to do something where you have to read 3 times the sentences because it's sort of not clear. You know, I will be very clear. It's like, I don't know, CSUN building swimming pools, you know, that's diversification. But CSUN creating a school of medicine, that will be product development, right? So that's important. That will make it super clear like this. It's not going to be gray. Now, the next strategy that I want to talk about is the basic competitive strategy. So this one comes from a professor from Harvard, actually, that is rather famous. And he created these as the basic strategy. So overall cost leadership is simply that you want to have the lowest price as possible. You're known as being the lowest price. The disadvantage with this—
Excuse me, Professor.
Yes.
Could I ask you about diversification?
Yes.
When you introduce that that totally different product, we said that we're also aiming for a new market, but aren't we kind of aiming for the same people to buy a different thing?
So let's say Honda wants to sell a lawn mower to the people that like their car. So it's the same people with a totally different product. You're still going to call that diversification because it's going to be a different distribution network. It's a totally different product. So even though it's still people that like the Honda motorcycle and the Honda car, it's still significantly different enough that it can be called diversification.
So it doesn't have to be a new market of people.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a totally new market. Just the fact that the product is so different, it's diversification.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. I never had this question, and it's a very valid question. Yeah. So, and that's all there is to it. And again, you know, this is brand new for you, I guess, and I will not ask complicated question on this. My point is not to quiz you, but just to test that you know the basic knowledge. I'm not trying to see the details, and that's not my way of going. So overall cost leadership, the problem is and that's a fundamental problem, is the more you try to be the cheapest, the less you become meaningful for the customers. And the less you become meaningful for the customers, the less you sell, and therefore then you're not making much profit, and the more your business is becoming not interesting to be working in it, because you're only working on some small margins. So you're just suffocating. So therefore, why does it overall cost leadership exist? Because it's a strategy that if you're not doing it forever, can be a strategy that you can adopt very quickly. And it's a strategy that gives you market share very quick. Suddenly you're the cheapest one, it gives you a market share. But it's in terms of sustainability, it's difficult to be sustainable constantly being the 99 cents of the industry. Focus is a strategy that consists in having a very specific product for a specific group of customers. So the idea is that people, it's sort of a minority, a very specific group of people. Maybe you're selling just to pro, like you're making a shampoo, but it's not a shampoo for everyone. It's just for professional hairdresser. So it's a professional grade or something like this. Or maybe it's a shampoo that uses a special vitamin that only certain people care for that vitamin because it's good for people who have diabetes or whatever. So it's not for everyone. It's focused on a very specific group of customers. So it's not for everyone. Differentiation is a strategy that consists in wanting to have a product. So it connects with the focus, but it's not different than the focus in the sense that you're trying to be different than the other brands. So people will buy that brand because of its different. It's sort of what Apple used to be at the beginning when they had the campaign of think different. People bought an Apple computer not because they thought it was better. It was because it looked different, so they wanted to be different than the other people. If you remember the Apples back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they were like a funny round monitor. They looked very different. They had different color. A computer, most of the computer were black or they were white, and Apple had all kinds of different colors. So they were always working on we are different, and they were hoping that people that like different things, more not the general mainstream groups, will be looking for this, but also that people will read those differences as making evidence that it's better. If it's different, it's probably better. And so they did this for a long time. Obviously, now they are not in doing this anymore. Middle of the road, and it's kind of a strange strategy because it's a strategy that consists in not having a very specific strategy where you're just sort of following. You're just trying to please many people. And obviously, there's one example there that I use as the example for a long time. Is Sears. It's funny because I use Sears. I've used Sears, I think, probably since 1999. Never I knew that Sears will happen to sort of disappear. But maybe part of the explanation of why they disappeared is because they took a middle of the road strategy. It's probably more reason for that. But when you are not very clear, and it's not a very strong position, a strategic position that you take, is you become a commodity. Therefore, you become a non-branded good, and therefore people don't see any value in buying from you. So they buy from everybody else who has focus, differentiation, or specific cost, leadership, or things like that. So Sears, you should have changed, but they didn't. Other strategies are operational excellence. Is the way you process. You process the orders, the way you process people getting their satisfied. And so that's very important. And how your company is streamlined and organized. Customer intimacy is how much you know your customers and how much your customers know you. It's almost like a club. It's not just a customer, but it's almost a partner in the company because you have this close relationship. Customer intimacy is very good. It's not good for everyone. All of the strategy have to be picked very carefully. Product leadership is when you are the archetype, you are the stereotype, you are the epitome, you are the excellence you perceive as being the best for the category. Then the last strategies are market leader is when you're trying to have the large share of the market. Yeah, you are the most sold brand and product in the industry. So you are the most downloaded video, singer, and all of this. And that strategy is market leadership. Market challenger is when you know that you do not have the resources of having the largest percentage of market share, and therefore you adopt a position which consists in following closely the market leader. So whatever the market leader does, you copy them, and you copy them very quick. So in terms of example, it's like Hertz. Hertz is the largest company that does the rental, the car rental, and then Avis, which will have much less resources, will be the market challenger. Then you have the market follower, which is sort of the middle of the road in the slide that I just had before. And then you have the market nicher, which is sort of the focus, which I had another slide just before. So why is there overlaps between these theories and all the slides? Is because there's different consulting companies. There's Gemini, there's Deloitte, there's Price Waterhouse, there's McKinsey, there's Boston Consulting Group, and all these people, a little bit like me with the OIST that I created as my own little acronym, they create their own set of strategies. There's more that I could bring to you, but these are essentially the most famous. You probably have 95% of the management, business, marketing strategies compiled in just a few slides like this. So what is very likely is, I would recommend, is that you keep those slides, because there is a 99% chance that you will be using these in the next 10 years, for sure. Just trying to memo yourself or remind yourself about the basic business strategies. And that's more likely if you are going into a position to work for a large corporation, because they use this all the time, or if you are an entrepreneur in the music industry or something related to the music industry, or just an entrepreneur, and you're creating your own company and you're trying to get into this. I've worked with the students from last year. I remember that he created a company which is a golf practice. So there's a student from 2021 that was inspired by the marketing class, and then very inspired by the entrepreneurship class. And then in July, August, he started looking for something. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. And then he contacted me in September, October to review his business. And it's a golf practice, has nothing to do with music. And he was showing me the slide. He's still using the slide in order to look for partners and look for investors and all of this. So this material is real material that you can use. Now I want to jump in consumer behavior. So why do you study the consumers? Is because you want to anticipate. You want to predict people's behavior. You want to understand what they see in terms of satisfaction and in terms of value, whether they buy, whether they don't buy, why do they buy, what do they buy, how much do they buy, where do they buy, when do they buy, how do they buy? All of these questions are what you want to know. And all of this happens in what's called the black box. The black box is essentially people's brain. What happens in the black box in people's brain is essentially they receive information, they process it, and they make a decision. So how are they influenced? The largest influence is culture. If you look at people, what are their religion? Oftentimes you'll find that people's religion is the religion of their family. It is very rare that these people will have an epistemologist view of religion, which will consist, I don't know if my parents have the best religion. I'm sure their religion is fine, but because I'm an epistemologist, I am not going to follow my parents' and family religion. I'm going to look at all the religions, or at least 5 or 6 religions, and study them until I can decide what is the religion that I should be following. Very rarely you'll meet someone that do that when it comes to religion, because religion is part of people's culture, and essentially, therefore, they pick the religion of their culture. So what are our decisions? Our decisions, if you had to summarize it, it's decisions that have been pre-programmed in us. There are standards in our culture. There are values in our cultures. There are norms in our culture, and therefore we react to those norms. What's interesting is how you look at culture. Obviously, there's the culture from a being American perspective, speaking English perspective, being a Californian, Southern California perspective, but you have subcultures. Obviously, there's a subculture which is different between Southern California and Northern California. It's very different. Los Angeles and San Francisco. I mean, you go in one city and the other, it's like you change country almost because it's so different. But you can do that anywhere in the USA. You can do that by going, people that like sports, can sport be a subculture? Sometimes you speak to some people about baseball. I mean, baseball they're so fanatic about it. It could be the same in the music. There's people that are fanatic of a certain style of music, and that's the only style or multiple styles that they like, and they are essentially can explain who they are based on that subculture. So sometimes subcultures may be more important than the culture in itself. And then you have the elements of social class, reference group, family, and if you're employed, non-employed, and what is your job? Your job has an influence on what you consume. And as you change in job, you will consume differently. And depending on the status that you have in your job, you also consume differently. So the status you have has a major impact on how you consume. But then there's the personal factor. So people make a big deal of the personal factor. And they are important, but again, not as important as the culture and subcultures. But the personal factors that probably the biggest influence. What do you think is the personal factors that has the biggest influence?
Personality?
So personality is the one that has the least influence. Oftentimes people, so thank you. But thank you for answering this, because people, because you and I, and it's true, we wish that our personality explain what we consume. Why? It's because we have a brain and we use it. Yeah, and Alexa, I like the face that you made. You're like, oh man. But we all wish this. We wish that we're self-driven. We wish that we are self-controlled. We wish that we can see the pluses and the minuses and all that. But unfortunately, it doesn't do very much. What does the most is explaining, that in a simple way, it's going to be crazy. And it's possible that you don't believe it because you're not old enough to see that. But what you think is very close to what your parents think. And so what people don't realize that is the influence of parents over people's decisions. It's huge. The only thing is we are extremely influenced, before we're like 12 years old. From 12, 13, all that is different for every people. This is just a general rule of thumb. After this, we try to do the opposite of our parents during the teenager year, most people. And then as we get older, it's very insidious. We don't notice it. But we actually start doing a lot of things like our parents. And it's not just our parents, it's our community, it's our grandparents, it's the environment where we lived in and all this. So it's very interesting to see that there's no DNA speaking in us. And personality is definitely there, and there's a huge impact. And obviously, there is research on personality that looks at pediatric psychological research, and that says that our personality is shaped, something like 90% of our personality is shaped before 5 years old. So that's another thing that is kind of crazy, is right now, you're not 5 years old, you're probably in your late 20s, early 30s. And you think that your personality is still being shaped right now. No, 90% was shaped between 0 and 5. And so that's why when you go to see a psychiatrist and let's say you have some problems, the psychiatrist is going to try to go deep in your psyche. And he's going to try to go deep in your psyche, because inside your psyche, inside the mini you, the small personality that lives inside you and is actually making orders. I mean, that's what Freudian theory talks about. This infant inside you is actually controlling most of your decisions that are unconscious. And they are the one that creates a lot of emotional decisions on all this. So the psychotherapist is going to try to go inside that period of time from 0 to 5 that you are unconscious, that you don't remember, that you're not aware of. And all of this is actually what's sort of controlling your emotion and your decision making, your fears, your beliefs, and all of that. So a lot of crazy things that I just told you right now, but it's true. I could go for hours on this. It's fascinating. I would recommend that you look into it. You look at personality, Freudian theory, and the impact of 0 to 5 over people's lifetime and control of fears and all of this. However, there is much bigger characteristic than this, such as gender. Gender has a significant explanation, but then is gender explained by the fact that you're a different gender, or is it explained by gender stereotype? That's what's hard to define, because there's also an effect of gender stereotype. I'm a man, I'm doing a certain things. So people say that, men tends to be better leader because they have more charisma? Do men have more charisma? Or because people expect men to have more charisma, that they've been sort of trained to believe that they have more charisma, and therefore it's not really a gender specificity, but it's a stereotype enhancement from a gender specificity. So it's interesting to see that therefore there's still a woman's side and a man's side of things, and that has a huge impact. Another one that has a huge impact is your age. Your age is, and why is your age has a huge impact? Is because of the family life cycle. And I have a slide just after. Is if you're living by yourself, it's very different than if you have a relationship. It's very different if you have kids, and it's very different if you're married, not married. All of this may seem to be very simple and over simple, but it does change. People change perspectives. And that's why sometimes people divorce as well, because they're very, very happy not being married, and suddenly they're married and they divorce. They can't stand each other anymore. And so all of these do change people's perspective because it's a different commitment, and different commitment creates different perspectives. So this isn't a true ad. It's an old ad, but it's still very true, from Mercedes-Benz, that was showing, you know, which car you buy, that they recommend that you would buy as you getting into a marital relationship with kids and so forth. You know, obviously it looks dated and all that, but it was just to express. And then Home Depot doing registries and all this. So age has an importance in your marital relationship as a thing. Obviously, another one that's extremely important is your economical situation. But you know, there's a lot of people that drive BMW that cannot afford BMW. There's a lot of people that buy Chanel products that should not be buying Chanel products. Actually, 70% of the sales of Chanel products is purchased by people that should not be buying Chanel product because it's over expensive. Yet Chanel is a multi-billion-dollar company that is very successful because 70% of the people buying their product should not be buying their product, yet they still do. So economical situation helps in explaining some decision making, but not only. There's some people that are influenced more by their lifestyle than they are influenced by their economical situation. They would rather not eat, but still drive a fancy car. Or they would rather live in someone else's apartment, they have their own apartment, but have nice vacation or nice clothing or whatever. You know, I saw this a lot at one stage where cell phones were expensive. I remember in 2008, 9, 10, there would be students that would have brand new Apple phone, and they would say that they are struggling financially, but they would have brand new Apple phone that were back then like $800 or whatever. But for those students, having a brand new Apple phone, it was more important than being able to pay the tuition or eat every day. And so that's the concept of the lifestyle. It was something that they felt was very, very important. Personality and self-concept are important as well, because personalities, you have some characteristics such as liking new things versus liking old things. That has an impact on how you consume. Liking things made in America or liking things made overseas, that has a huge impact as well. So there's some personality, and they call them traits, and some traits that have an impact. And people perception of themselves, you know, do they have a high level of perception of themselves or a low level? And then to finish, it's the elements which are called psychological. So if you are motivated, you are more likely to be buying a product. So that's obvious. How do you get motivated is by the concept of the need. You know, it's like, how motivated are you in buying new tires? Not motivated. How motivated you are in buying new tires once you have a punctured tire? Once you have a punctured tire, you get very motivated, and then you look for information, and then you buy a tire, and then 2 weeks after that, you don't even remember all the different details about buying tires because you don't do it regularly. So it's like a short-term memory sort of thing. Perceptions are very important because people have different perceptions. Obviously, we talked about Schopenhauer just a few minutes ago, and Schopenhauer talked about those perceptions based, you know, on the fact that people do not look at the information, but they're looking at how do they feel about the information and the situation. So perceptions are very important. Learning, how people learn. Do they learn by looking at others, what the others people do, and they want to copy? do people learn by their own experience and they want to experience, and then based on their evaluation satisfaction of the experience, they want to buy more? Or do they learn by repetition? So it's essentially exposure. I mean, if they learn by exposure, they're going to be very sensitive to advertising. If they learn by looking at others, they're going to be very influenced by influencers. And if they learn by their own experience, they're going to be more in looking at cognition and knowledge information. Then beliefs and attitudes is therefore this quick and culturally binded elements that allows you to think in terms of the knowledge that you have. So based on what you know, here's how you're going to think. Based on how you feel, so there's a component of emotion, component of liking or not liking, components of familiarity. Have you heard about this brand before? No, it's less likely that you buy it. Have you heard about this brand before? You never buy it? No, but I've heard about it. You're more likely to buy it. So sometimes businesses are not about selling things. They are about just being known by the target. Get the target to know about your product, because this is your foot in the door. If they know about this brand, if they know about this singer, they are more likely to do something about this singer. So first, not making them buy, first is making them know. Building attitude, building familiarity. There is something positive about this person. And so sometimes you have to create the elements to generate positivity in order to increase the sales. So now, another thing that's really important is Maslow hierarchy of needs. So I would imagine most of you have heard of this. It's a very basic psychological hierarchy pyramid that is used in many classes, not just in business. And what it says is that there's different needs from 1 to 5, which are in a level of hierarchy. And people start from the bottom, and then they go, and once they fulfill the bottom, they move to a higher level. So the first 2 levels are physiological, which means that you have to complete these levels in order to survive. So you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to have security. Then the third level is a level where people need to feel that they belong to a specific group. So they are not isolated. They're part of a club, they are a student, they are a fan, they follow, they have Facebook accounts, they have people following them, and so forth. Then the fourth level is ego needs. Not only they are not isolated, they have an identity, but within the group that they belong, they have some level of prestige. Which means that, you know, so like you, I don't know, you play golf, but you not just a golf player, but you have a handicap. You're like 10, you're like 6, you're like 1. So your handicap gives you prestige. So you're not just a CSUN student, you're honors CSUN student. You are a specialty student, like a MIA student or something. So these are, you know, show that the person not only belongs to a group, but they have some level of leadership. So we all do that. We all want to excel. We don't always want to be unknown and all this, or just followers. Sometimes we want to lead. Then the next level, and that's very interesting because it's very disconnected from 4 and 3, is when you actually have a need to excel, but this excellence is not in the eyes of someone else. It's in your own self-concept, self-esteem. So you want to feel good about yourself. So it's like you could say, you know, I listen to music because I want to relax and not be stressed. So this is like 1 and 2 physiological. I listen to Drake because I like rap and my friends like rap, and I want to be part of a group that people like rap, social needs. Then ego needs is, you know, a bunch of rappers that people don't know. And you can throw names of people that people don't know. So that makes you look like you are someone that is knowledgeable about rap because you know the newcomers and the trends and all this. So it's not just the basic followers, you have some excellence. And then the 5th level is you actually write rap song, which maybe other people will think is horrible, but it doesn't matter because you are doing it for yourself. And you have this, you're learning instruments, you're learning music, and you're doing your own songs for actually experiencing the the enjoyment of creating something. So it's very inner directed. It's very personal. It's called self-fulfillment, self-actualization. It's inner directed need. Okay, so all of these, where and why would you use this? You would use this when you're talking to people, when you're doing interviews and trying to see why they listen to music and what they are not getting from music that they wish they could get. Is there a way to better satisfy? Is there something that niche what you could do in order to be perceived as being better within the motivations? Because here we're talking about people's motivations. So quickly moving into perception, so I discussed that. But then what's interesting is the J&D. It's one of my favorite concepts, in fact. The J&D is just noticeable difference. Now, my favorite concept, which has to be the most important, is opportunity. My second favorite concept is probably just noticeable difference. The idea is to succeed, you just need to be perceived as better. So that's obvious. But better in the sense that you don't want the perception to be in the eye of the producer. Is you don't want an artist to create songs and think they are wonderful and that nobody thinks they're wonderful, and then they tell everybody that it's because they're a bunch of losers. You don't want to be a cook that everybody comes to your restaurants and say it's disgusting, and then the cook says, it's not disgusting, I have the best food. You guys don't have good taste. So the just noticeable difference is, who am I serving? First, recognition of the target. Two, what do they want? Pinpoint exactly what they want. Three, offer them exactly what they want with just enough that it's motivating them to get your product. Because if you offer them more than what they want, either they're going to think it's too good to be true and not buy you, which is sad, or they're going to sort of abuse buying you because you're going to be such a good deal that you're going to have to make it even as good next time, and it's almost impossible. You're never going to make money. If you could making it so sweet, it becomes very difficult. So the just noticeable difference is being right exactly to explain that this shoe is perfect. It's like creating the Cinderella shoe for the clients. So it is very important. Here is an example of a project that I did. I call it the cherry on top as well. You know, the cherry on top is this just small details that makes it that people notice it. We did a project for a very big company. So if you don't know this company, because in America, nobody knows it. However, if you're British, if you English or whatever, you know this because this is essentially like Kellogg's Cornflakes. It's like the 101 of breakfast cereal in the United Kingdom. I don't know the percentage, but I would not be surprised that 40% of the people or something eats this at least once a week. So what I found interesting is in America, nobody knows about it. However, you can find it in many places, but there's usually one box. That's all there is, max. One box and behind another one and so forth. So I contacted them and I said, let me do this project with my marketing students for your breakfast cereal. And what we found is when Americans look at this, and if we do the turn the light, dim the light, dim the light, dim the light, at the end they tell you, this is not sexy. This is boring. This looks bad. This looks dry. This looks like I'm gonna have a stomachache. So then we said to the people, let's put back the light, and then let's talk and say, how can we make it in a way that it's sexy, it's look appetizing, and you would want to take the whole box as quickly as possible. And what we found is we had to make a combination of things. Essentially, we found that people like Ensure, people like Go-Gurt, and then we said, can we do a Ensure, Go-Gurt, and Weetabix? Yes. And we created Go Wito. So Go Wito is it's for Americans, because the Americans, they like to eat while they walk. Americans like to hear about the fact that it has cereal, that it has no gluten, no nothing, no this. Essentially, there's nothing in there. And so they like to see that, and they like to be full by the thing, and they like to eat with one hand, and if they could use two fingers, it's perfect. So that was very specific to the Americans, and we said, okay, so how do we do that? We have to create a cartoon character because the kids don't buy if there's no cartoon character. So we created the Go Wito cartoon character, which therefore kids can take with them at a school, and then they have a Go Wito. The parents feel good because it has vitamins, it has this, it has it's all good. Approved by Milgram. So that was the idea, the combination. Okay, so how do people consume is they go through phases. First, and I felt bad saying that, but first you have these people, they're very happy. But then you have a marketer that comes and say, no, you're not happy. You have X, you could have X plus. And then the consumer says, X plus, and then you dangle it, right? Amazon, banners, ads, messages, and then people go, I need it. I want it. I've been exhausted thinking about this. So they need to have it. They look for information, or they just go buy it, or they look for what's available if they are a little bit more engaged, or maybe because it's expensive, therefore they don't want to jump into just buying it like this. They want to search into it. So that's the idea. And then they buy, and then they feel satisfied and not satisfied, and then they buy again. So that's why when you're a marketer, not only you try to pick the customers from your competitors, but you try to even dissatisfy eventually your own clients by offering them something new that is better. So you have Intel 1, Intel 2, Intel 3, iPhone 1, iPhone 2, iPhone 3, iPhone 20, and that's what you do. And you constantly, you have the aspirin 1, aspirin 2, aspirin 3, aspirin 4. And that's how you make business, is you keep people buying your products. Because products come and go, is therefore you have different group of customers. If you have the innovators, it's the first group that buys, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. What's interesting with this is, in your case, the big question is, who are the innovators? And that's what you have to focus on. Who are the innovators? Because Nishwaki needs innovators to launch them. Then just to finish is the small difference I want to talk about here is the combination of selling to a consumer versus selling to a business. So for a business, there's more stages and more people involved. And essentially the decision-making process is longer and more sophisticated. This is for a business versus this is for a consumer. So what's the difference between the two? Is for a business, there's more structure and there's more reviews. A business wants to make money, so therefore they are more careful. Okay. Now, last subject I want to talk about is the fact that you can sell in America, you can sell overseas. Why would you want to sell overseas? Because maybe you can make more profits overseas. Maybe because by growing overseas is going to strengthen you locally. So where do you go overseas? Well, you can go to the closest place. So you're in America, you sell in Mexico. You're in America, you want to sell in English, you sell to Canada. But you also want to get the one that is not just the proximity from a geography, but maybe in the type of consumers. So you may end up going much further away. So when you go away, is you have complicated way to go and simple way to go. So it's either direct exporting or indirect exporting. Indirect exporting is the simple one, is when you're selling your product to an existing company that is overseas. And this company overseas is acting as your agent overseas and selling your product. So there's different formats. Is you have a single person that is your agent, or you have a distribution company or an importer company, or you could invest in this company, or you could work within a company that works with multiple companies and is sort of subsided where you invest in it. Or you have the direct exporting where you're creating a full branch, or you just getting some salespeople on the ground and you are developing yourself overseas. Another thing that is important to talk about is the country of origin effect. Every country has a little bit of a reputation. And so I can speak about the French people. The people think that we are good at fashion. The people think that we are good in very high-level technology, such as the planes or the nuclear power. But people may not on the cooking and all these things. But maybe people won't think that we're very good at consumer electronics. Versus Japan will be famous for consumer electronics, but maybe not as good for things that have to do with Japan. I don't know what they would not be good at. I think Japan is good at everything, so I have no complaint. Quiz samples, just for you to see. next Wednesday, you would have the quiz, and there's going to be some multiple questions. I think it's 30 multiple questions. They're going to look like this, and 2 open questions. So the 2 open questions, what's very important, so that close-ended like this. Under the BCG growth share matrix, I share, I growth are what? I share, I growth, this is a star. So it's A. So you just need to know. So you need to essentially read the textbook, read the slides, and when you read the slides, not be confused by any words. Inside the slide, there's the BCG, there's the matrix. You just need to understand what they are. The next one, the strategy of going after a new product that is unusual for the company in a very different market is called, so this one is the one I was talking about before. It's unusual. So that's the trigger that it gives you. So it's an unusual product that is for a different market. So the fact that it's unusual makes it diversification. It's not something that they do. It's not like Colgate toothpaste making toothpaste is suddenly Colgate toothpaste or Colgate making tomato sauce. You know, so that would be very unusual for them. They're not known to be making this kind of products. The problem here is not so much the close, it's the open-ended. So the open-ended question could be something like, why should you think about strategies before you think about tactics? The big mistake people make is some people are going to say, because strategies are the broader, and you need to think broad before you think specific. Is that a correct answer? Yes, but you have more space. You have like, how long do you have? You have like 30 minutes to answer, or at least 15 minutes just for that question. Don't answer by yes or no with 1 or 2 sentences. There's not too many people that do that, but there's going to be 5. There's going to be 20 people that are going to say, there are 4 reasons for why a strategy is more important than tactics. The first reason is this and this and that, and this is why. The second reason is this and this and that, and this is why. So they're going to elaborate. So since you have 15 minutes per question, at least elaborate. Don't answer by having 1 sentence. I mean, I'm just telling you this because I want to avoid those 5 people just doing a sentence. I mean, there's always one person that says yes or no. So elaborate, think about an answer that is structured. Don't jump in just writing things as they come to your mind. You're going to be in front of your computer, you have access to information or whatever. Take a white piece of paper and put 4 points and then elaborate on the 4 points. To me, it seems obvious, but I've been doing this for sort of 10 years with this class. And every year there's some people that just do not elaborate. They just say yes or no. And it's that, elaborate, take the time. There's no rush.